We're spending the hour with White House correspondent Bill Koenig, and I've been working with Bill since 2002. And Bill, before we move to some foreign policy, because Eric brought up something during the break we need to cover, and I have it in my notes, and you write this. You say, in a morning tweet, Trump warned that the Freedom Caucus would hurt the entire Republican agenda if they don't get on the team and fast. And then you say he grouped its members, all of them, with Democrats in calling for their political defeat. And then you say, it's not wise, President Trump. Conservatives got you elected. Conservatives don't compromise principles. Do you see this happening, that Donald Trump could overthrow or at least marginalize conservatives?
He backed off that right after he fired that out. That was kind of a heat of the battle moment over the,
healthcare.
Healthcare thing. It was just typical. The media, they're just, Trump can't get this through. This is a big campaign promise. He's failing. His whole agenda is at risk. It was one major news organization after another just really coming against Trump. I mean, they were blasting them and just saying it's over, this is finished, he can't gain control of his party. And I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. He kind of backed off of that later, and they supposedly are making some inroads, the conservatives and the moderates in the party. And Jan, as you know, this has been a challenge within the party for quite a while during George Bush's time in office. Is the moderates who have had more people in Congress than the conservatives, and there's a lot of conservatives now. The conservatives help elect the senators and congressmen and congresswomen that we have in place now. President Trump would not be the president without that, so, it's going to work out, but, this is typical of Washington. You have like three parties here. You have the Democrats that always seem to be aligned despite their differences, and then you have the Republican Party, moderate, Republican Party conservative, and unfortunately that sometimes the Republicans are their own worst enemy.
They are. The Democrats don't have much of a moderate wing. You've got Joe Manchin and one other person, and that's about it. But with the Republicans, it's a different story. So regardless of the health care battle and how it turns out, how far will the Freedom Caucus bend? And I guess the other question is, how far do you think Trump's going to bend when it comes to issues like this, especially when we get into the social issues? Where do you think a line's going to be drawn, or do you think there'll be a coalescing of the Republican Party?
Eric, it's really tough. You look at history to kind of get a better idea of the future. I think that, the Republicans understand we have a unique opportunity. We, in a sense, blew it during our 8 years with Bush. And we've been given another opportunity, so let's don't mess it up this time. So I think that, the conservative 33, 34 members of the Freedom Caucus are very, very committed to conservative and many times Christian principles, so I think they're going to stand strong. It's hard to speculate at this point, but the Democrats and the media are very good at creating turmoil amongst the conservatives and the moderates, and I think we have to be careful going forward with that to speculate at this point. But I'm hopeful and prayerful that they will make some solid decisions. And on the social issues, we kind of discussed that in the first part of the program. There's other challenges within the Trump administration because of his son-in-law and daughter, but there is also hope that some positive things will come. We have 10 members of Trump's cabinet that are evangelicals. This is unprecedented. And I think a lot of reasons to be optimistic, but at the same time, this is Washington, and there's landmines everywhere.
Yeah. If you'd like to know more about Bill Koenig and his ministry outreach, look him up at watch.org, W-A-T-C-H, watch.org. You can sign up for his weekly e-newsletter, Koenig's Eye View from the White House, strictly e-newsletter by subscription. And you can look up a couple of his books as well. We've featured them on air several times, carried them at one time. We're not carrying them at the moment, but watch.org is the place for news, views, and truths, just as this program is. You're listening to Understanding the Times Radio. I'm Jan Markell. Eric Barger is my co-host today, talking to Bill Koenig. Bill, I want to just take a detour before we hit some of the, as you said to me the other day, the final day scenarios are happening so fast. I want to talk to you a little bit about Donald Trump, the new administration, and Israel, because you said to me, and this is a startling statement, you said to me that Donald Trump represents the most pro-Israel president ever in the history of the nation of Israel. That is a very significant statement you made.
Yeah, this is a very serious. When you look at who he's selecting, to represent him. David Friedman, his longtime attorney, has been selected and approved as the ambassador to Israel. He speaks fluent Hebrew. His father was a rabbi. He has committed a lot of money to the settlement communities in terms of yeshivas in Samaria and other things. Throughout the years, he's raised a lot of money for that. Jason Greenblatt, his international peace moderator who will be working in Israel, the Middle East, and other parts of the world, also speaks fluent Hebrew and has also had a fantastic trip to Israel a few weeks ago. It's interesting, New York Times said, this shows how serious Trump is. He's sending his real estate attorney over to Israel to start talking peace. Well, Greenblatt won over everybody, including the leftists in the media over there, the leftist politician. He met with everybody. He met with the Palestinians. He met with the settlers. He met with the imams. He met with the rabbis, different church-affiliated groups. He met with Abbas a couple times, Netanyahu. He met with the defense ministers. It was a remarkably effective 4-day trip. Mm-hmm. And he even went over to the Arab League meeting a couple weeks ago as an observer. So he's showing that Trump is serious about Israel living in peace and security, and that they are willing to go forward in the peace process. And we know there's no solution right now. We know that Abbas and Netanyahu will not agree to something. But what has happened in the past, whether it was Arafat or Abbas who received 95, 98% of what they wanted, they always came back to the international community and blamed Israel. Well, they're going to push forward, possibly have a peace conference later in the summer or in the fall. And I believe that Abbas will not accept it again. And this time, I believe the Trump administration will say the problem is the Palestinians because almost everything they wanted has been offered, but they continue to turn it down. With all that said, Jan, I think Trump, as well as many Jewish people who live in Israel, would like to see Israel live in peace and security. But is that possible? Well, the Bible has other specifics about the final days. So I think they're going to do everything they can to do it right. And if it fails, it fails. But this time Israel won't get the blame.
Well, I think 2017 is going to be a very significant year. And I know you do too, Bill. I mean, we've got from 1897 to the present, 1897, Theodore Herzl began talking about an independent Jewish state 120 years ago. 1917, the Balfour Declaration, which made it possible, the beginning stages anyway, 100 years ago. Jerusalem reunited in 1967, 50 years ago. And we could go on with some other numerical illustrations that are rather stunning, but the audience gets a little bit dizzy when we do that without visuals to enhance that. But I do think 2017 is going to be extremely significant this year.
Yeah, it is. It's also, it's the 50th anniversary, as you mentioned, Jan. That's very significant. Next year is the 70th anniversary of Israel becoming a state. And also, this is the year of 5777 on the Jewish calendar, which has got a lot of people's attention as well. And another little interesting tidbit is the day after Trump was inaugurated, it was his 70th year, 7th month, and 7th day of his life. And like you said, it can be dizzying, but there's a bunch of numbers. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of patterns. Everything pointing to a very significant 2017, the year 5777, and also leading into 2018. We're just in an unprecedented times. Plus, I think, I'm sure you'll get to this shortly, it's just the significance of what's taking place in the United States, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. There are a lot of things that are very serious that are aligning.
And before we go there, I want to play one more clip. It's very short. It's Nikki Haley, and I think this sums up the new relationship of the United States and Israel. And Bill and Eric, the contrast, what you're going to hear now versus a Samantha Power in the United Nations just a year or 2 or 5 ago is so stunning. I think this little short clip says it all.
So the first thing I want to do is talk about what we just saw in there. The Security Council just finished its regular monthly meeting on Middle East issues. It's the first meeting like that I've attended, and I have to say it was a bit strange. The Security Council is supposed to discuss how to maintain international peace and security. But at our meeting on the Middle East, the discussion was not about Hezbollah's illegal buildup of rockets in Lebanon. It was not about the money and weapons Iran provides to terrorists. It was not about how we defeat ISIS. It was not about how we hold Bashar al-Assad accountable for the slaughter of hundreds and thousands of civilians. No, instead the meeting focused on criticizing Israel, the one true democracy in the Middle East. I am new around here, but I understand that's how the Council has operated month after month for decades. I'm here to say the United States will not turn a blind eye to this anymore. I'm here to underscore the ironclad support of the United States for Israel. I'm here to emphasize the United States is determined to stand up to the UN's anti-Israel bias. We will never repeat the terrible mistake of Resolution 2334 and allow one-sided Security Council resolutions to condemn Israel. Instead, we will push for action on the real threats we face in the Middle East. We stand for peace. We support a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that is negotiated directly between the two parties, as President Trump reiterated in his meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday. The outrageously biased resolutions from the Security Council and the General Assembly only make peace harder to attain by discouraging one of the parties from going to the negotiating table. Incredibly, the UN Department of Political Affairs has an entire division devoted to Palestinian affairs. Imagine that. There is no division devoted to illegal missile launches from North Korea. There is no division devoted to the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. The prejudiced approach to Israeli-Palestinian issues does the peace process no favors, and it bears no relationship to the reality of the world around us. The double standards are breathtaking. Just a few days ago, the United States sought, unsuccessfully, to have the Security Council condemn a terrorist attack to Israel, where the terrorists opened fire on people waiting for a bus and then stabbed others. The Security Council would not hesitate to condemn an attack like that in any other country, but not for Israel. The statement was blocked, and that's downright shameful. Israel exists in a region where others call for its complete destruction, and in a world where anti-Semitism is on the rise. These are threats that we should discuss at the United Nations as we continue working toward a comprehensive agreement that would end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But outside of the UN, there is some good news. Israel's place in the world is changing. Israel is building up new diplomatic relationships. More and more countries recognize how much Israel contributes to the world. They are recognizing that Israel is a beacon of stability in a troubled region, and that Israel is at the forefront of innovation, entrepreneurship, and technological discovery. It is the UN's anti-Israel bias that is long overdue for change. The United States will not hesitate to speak out against these biases in defense of our friend and ally, Israel. I will say that I think we saw maybe a slightly different tone in the meeting, but we will have to see how it goes forward.